Donald Trump is traveling in Asia this week, but it has not stopped him from making news on the domestic front, most notably on his health. So, Donald Trump, while he was flying to Japan on Monday, started talking about his health and about a recent trip he made to Walter Reed Medical Center and what happened there. So, let me just quote you a little bit of it. Here's what he said. I did. I got an MRI. It was perfect. I gave you the full results. We had an MRI in the machine, the whole thing, and it was perfect. And then a little bit more. I think they gave you a very conclusive, nobody has ever given you reports like I gave you. And if I didn't think it was going to be good either, I would let you know negatively. I wouldn't run. I'd do something. But the doctor said some of the best reports for the age, some of the best reports they've ever seen. Okay, so we did not, in fact, know that Donald Trump, when he went to Walter Reed earlier this month, had an MRI, a magnetic resonance imaging done. We do not know why he had it done. The White House has not said. In fact, they didn't tell us that he had an MRI done. They said it was just his annual physical, and to the extent we got any information, it was that he got a COVID-19 booster shot. So Donald Trump again, and his White House again, and the White House physician's office again, are at a minimum keeping information from the public and at a maximum misleading the public about his health and sort of where it is and where it's going. I want to talk a little bit more about that, not in a conspiracy way at all. In fact, I think what's happening to Donald Trump is, and I'll talk about this later, but it's basically what happened. He's a 79-year-old man who has not taken great care of himself, doesn't exercise, doesn't watch his diet, etc. I think what's happening to him makes sense as it relates to a 79-year-old man. But I want to go through the timeline of sort of what Trump has told us about his medical history, because this is just the latest in a series of events in which Donald Trump and his team, whether it's the campaign, the White House physician's office, have not given us the full truth about medical stuff he's doing. Okay, before I do that, I want to make a quick pitch to you. I want you to subscribe to my channel. Simple reasons. I'm independent and I'm authentic. Independent from big corporate media, also independent from the two political parties. I'm authentic. I'm always going to give you my honest, no spin, no BS, no partisan hat take on things. I'm not always going to be right. You're not always going to agree with me, but you'll always know it came from the heart and the head, and it is not in any way meant to be sort of fan fiction and fan service. Okay, so let's just do this year of Donald Trump, his second term in the White House, and I can go back a little bit and talk about his medical history. So this year, in April, as all presidents do, Trump had an annual physical, after which he was pronounced as, incredibly healthy and doing great. But then over the summer, there were pictures that started to get a lot of attention. And basically two things. One is that on his right, the back of his right hand, Trump had consistent bruising that he was clearly trying to cover up with makeup or cover up, okay, like a black and blue bruise. Also, people noticed that when Trump was sitting, his ankles were hugely and legs were hugely swollen. Then the White House did something that it really doesn't do very often, which is provide information about his health. On July 17th, they announced that he had been diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency. This is a condition where the leg veins do not pump blood back to the heart as effectively as they should. As a result, blood pools in the legs. Your legs can feel heavy. They can look swollen. They can feel itchy. It's a condition that 1 in 20 American adults suffer from. It is not life-threatening in and of itself. But Donald Trump does have that. Okay, so then fast forward to October when we hear that he is going back to Walter Reed Medical Center for an annual physical. Now, your annual physical usually only happens once a year. That's why it's not a twice a year physical. So that was a little weird, but the White House did not explain anything. As I said, the only thing they told us was that he got a COVID-19 booster shot while he was there, but it was not clear why he was there, why there needed to be a follow-up examination after his examination back in April. And now we learn from Donald Trump that he in fact had an MRI when he was at the Walter Reed in October. We don't know, again, we don't know where it was, why it was prescribed. Nobody said anything at the time. They didn't explain it in any way, and Trump did not explain on the plane to Japan why he had the MRI and why the doctor recommended it. So there's two basic ways that you can go, I think, when you are presented with this kind of information. The way one is Donald Trump is hiding something big. He's really sick, and they're keeping it from the public. Way two is he's an old man who is not taking great care of himself and has, as a result, the medical issues that an older person would have. Now, I think the answer, honestly, is number two. He's an old man who has the medical problems that someone who's 79, almost 80 years old, who is not taking particularly good care of himself. I mean, everybody knows he doesn't really exercise. He eats fast food all the time, right? He is not doing the things to lengthen his life that we know typically lengthen a life. So he is suffering from that old age in a lot of ways. Now, the reason that I think a lot of people believe option one, they're hiding something big, is because this is Trump's own doing. If you go all the way back to 2015 when he started running for president, he put out a note by his personal physician, who's since deceased, in which the physician said that Donald Trump, if elected, would be the healthiest person ever to serve as president. Now, the doctor told CNN years later that Donald Trump himself dictated that note and demanded that the doctor put his name on it. But over and over again, Trump has, if not deceived, gone out of his way to obstruct when it comes to his medical history. He promised repeatedly in 2015 that he would release his full medical records. He never did. And then when he was asked about it as president in 2017, he said, well, the public didn't care about it. Yeah, I mean, nobody cared about my medical stuff because I won. So therefore, I don't need to release it. When he was in the White House, he contracted COVID. We learned he eventually wound up at Walter Reed because of COVID. We learned that his case of COVID we later learned his case of COVID was far more advanced and far more serious than we were led to believe at the time by the White House physician and then afterward by Donald Trump and his allies. So there's a long history here of the Trump White House downplaying his medical conditions. So I understand why people are skeptical. Now, I will say, and this is why I think the answer to all of this is it's an old man who's very vain. I mean vain, V-A-I-N, not vain, V-E-I-N. Joe Biden was not particularly forthcoming about his health and his mental and physical deterioration, which we all saw in that June debate in 2024, right? So this is not unique to presidents. It is not unique to people. As you age, or even as you don't age, I think people are reluctant to share their medical information. I think if I had to guess, Donald Trump is probably a little bit embarrassed by the fact that he's got some of these conditions that come with having not taken care of yourself, being overweight, not being in good shape, eating poorly. He's probably embarrassed about the stuff and he doesn't want it to come out. Now, that doesn't really work because you're the president of the United States, right? You're not just a private citizen. You're the president. You get the best medical care in the country, maybe in the world. And as a result, as a trade-off for that, and for being the most powerful person in the world, you have to be more forthcoming about your health, in theory. Donald Trump isn't that way. I understand people who feel like it is nefarious and that this latest admission of an MRI is just yet more evidence that he has congenital heart failure or dementia. I mean, I've heard the whole gamut of things that people think are wrong with him. Again, I don't think it's that. I think it's a 79-year-old who didn't take care of his body, who is breaking down and who is extremely vain and doesn't want to talk about it. And I'll give you an example. So in the same interviews on the plane where he's talking about his MRI, he then randomly goes into talking about how he aced the cognitive exams that he was given. This is how the New York Times wrote it. As he fielded questions on Monday, Mr. Trump seemed intent on presenting himself as the picture of physical and mental health, claiming without evidence that two Democratic lawmakers, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York and Jasmine Crockett of Texas, would not pass the cognitive health exams he has taken at Walter Reed. Let AOC go against Trump, Mr. Trump said, talking about himself as a candidate in the hypothetical future presidential race. Let Jasmine go against Trump. The first couple questions are easy: a tiger, an elephant, a giraffe. When you get up to about 5 or 6, then you get up to 10 and 20 and 25. They couldn't come close to answering any of those questions. Okay, man. But I think that is about his vanity, right? His ego. He doesn't want to be portrayed as an old man who's breaking down, which I understand. But I think the reality is he's an old man who is physically breaking down, you know? But I don't think there's a nefarious plot here. I don't think he's dying. I think he is suffering from what a normal 79-year-old man who didn't take care of himself would suffer from. Doesn't mean it's great, but it also doesn't mean they're covering up some huge condition. I hope that explains things for folks. That's what I'm always aiming to do. As I said before, I hope you subscribe. Independent and authentic. That's who I am. It's who I'll always be. I also hope you like and comment on this video in particular. It helps me grow my community among people who are not already subscribers. We're almost to 130,000. And finally, be an evangelist for me. Tell a few people about why you like what I do, why you think it's valuable, and why they need to sign up now because the 2026 midterms are coming. Okay, everyone. Take care.